Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It is your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Today, we're discussing a 2022 release. This is a 700-piece limited edition in titanium. It is the Grand Seiko Spring Drive GMT SBGC249 15th anniversary. That is 15 years since the SBGC won the first Grand Seiko Spring Drive GMT Chrono. So the watch is large. It's part of the new Evolution 9 collection, which means it's cased, rendered out of effectively grade 5 titanium, is inspired by the historic 44GS. The watch is large. At 45.3 millimeters in diameter, it's 16.1 millimeters thick. From end link to end link, case only, it is 52.3 millimeters across the wrist, but if we include the end link to end link bracelet dimension, this is the total distance across the wrist. Now the total span across the wrist with the bracelet included, that is 55 millimeters. There is a spacing of 23 millimeters between the lugs. Okay, it's a large watch, but it's mostly sapphire and titanium, which means it doesn't feel physically huge on the wrist, though it certainly looks the part. I'm going to recommend that you have a wrist no smaller than mine to wear this. My wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. The lugs are right out to the edge of my wrist. I mean, they are right on the border. So if your wrist were any smaller, you'd have lug overlap, which I generally don't like. Now, the case itself is fairly sheer and thick, so it'll fit underneath jacket cuffs, but not dress sleeves. The bracelet is a 3-link design in titanium. It's mostly satinated, though you can see that there is a shoulder bevel and polish. Grand Seiko continues to feature strap tool holes, even in unusual places on fairly expensive watches. Heck, I've seen Micro Artist Studio 8-day spring drives with strap tool holes in platinum. This is titanium, so it's a sports watch. You can quickly swap out to a strap. The bracelet, as with Grand Seiko titanium bracelets, uses pins and sleeves for sizing removable links, and you can see that there are intermediate size links in there for fine-tuning the fit if you're in between sizes. And then we have 4 pairs of divots drilled inside the clasp, so you can use your strap tool to change the anchoring point and alter the fit. We have a single swing arm, thick gauge titanium clasp, twin trigger release so it can't pop open accidentally. The Grand Seiko logo, internally media blasted, externally polished. It's a nice contrast. The case features the same treatment on the crown. It is a screw down crown. The watch is 100 meters water resistant. You can see that the outer faces as well as the shoulder bevels of the pushers are polished, and then their flanks are satinated. We have both polish and satin on the case, which features the angular and faceted design inspired by the 44GS. These polished facets are executed using a spinning tin plate. The artisan holds the surface to be milled, the case, directly against a spinning tin plate on a Zalitz machine. Grand Seiko calls this Zaratsu finish, and it is a handcraft that takes about 3 years to master. So this is very much a hand-finished watch. You can see that the bezel is both satinated and polished along its rim, and then it has a sapphire that sits on top of a 24-hour base. So you have a lot of scratch resistance to protect that 24-hour GMT scale. The reason I like that is because that means that all of the lume on the bezel is protected from scratches, so the whole bezel, which is bidirectional, can be lumed. You can see how the 24-hour hand is blue and the 24-hour scale on the bezel is also blue. So you can use the bezel to calculate a third time zone. You can add or subtract from GMT. That's how the bezel works. And I say third time zone because if you look at the dial itself, there's another 24-hour scale printed on the dial. The gold hand is a 24-hour hand that you can set separately from the 12-hour local hand. So in general, the way you would tell that third time zone is set the 24-hour hand to Greenwich Mean Time, then use the GMT offset of whatever time zone you're trying to find, and that's how you can get it to show 3 time zones. But most people are just going to use it to show 2. So you set your local time to whatever it may be. It'll drive the date forward or backwards depending on whether you're traveling east or west. And then you pull the crown out all the way, you activate hacking, stop seconds, and you move everything. Notice how the seconds hand stops, constant second stops. The 24-hour hand is now moving at half the speed of the 12-hour hand. And you can see the power reserve indicator on the dial. It is a 72-hour automatic winding power reserve. Chronograph registers are over here, tightly clustered, so you can refer to them at a glance. And the seconds hand in the center, truthfully speaking, it is the chronograph seconds hand. It's not the one that registers constant seconds. That's at 9. You can see it has a semi-instantaneous jumping minutes display. And this is a completely smooth gliding hand. No starts, no stops, no ticking, no talking. A spring drive is a completely seamless unidirectional system by which the mainspring directly drives the hands. There are no motors, batteries, or capacitors, though it is quartz regulated, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You can see that the hands and the indices, as well as the frame for the date and the Grand Seiko logo, are polished and satinated and faceted to exacting standards. This is all done manually. You can see how the tops of the hands are satinated, but their sides are mirrored. That's difficult to do, and that is done artisanally and manually. Also, the pieces are placed by hand on the dial, so just as the case is handcrafted, so too is the dial. Flip it all over, you can see that this watch features a gold medallion inside the rotor. That's how you know this is a hot rod spring drive. It's not the 9R86 that you'll see on the standard spring drive GMT model. This is the 9R96, which uses a special quartz oscillator to make it accurate to plus or minus 10 seconds per month rather than the standard watch's 15. Now you can see that there is a column wheel at the flank of the watch, and it has an incredibly crisp column wheel action. It also has a vertical clutch, so there's no stagger or jump when you start the chronograph, and no extra wear and tear if you choose to leave the chronograph running. The 50-jewel movement has a unidirectional governing wheel that's turned by a drivetrain from the mainspring. As the wheel spins, it creates an induced electrical current that wakes up the quartz crystal, which uses an electromagnetic braking force to slow or speed up the governing wheel being geared directly to the barrel on one side and directly to the hands on the other, then regulates the time. That's how you wind up with a mechanical watch that keeps quartz-like precision, and it is very special in that regard. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.